Okay, so there's been a change of plans. Apparently the textbook order got messed up somehow. Don't know. Um, I don't typically deal with that, but the textbooks will be provided at some point. Heather is working on that. So until then, we'll have to kind of make do for this week to see what we can do. I'm not sure when the textbooks will be here. Okay. So in this video, I'm going to go ahead and go through some preliminary stuff, go through an overview of chapter one. You're going to want to read chapter one yourself at some point. There could be material there that's on the first exam, but a lot of it is not directly pertainable to programming. Okay. Then I'll do a separate video just so they won't be so long on chapter two, where I will go through the programs that the book has in chapter one. Okay. And then for the homework, instead of putting in homework numbers, I'll put in the actual assignment. I'll type out the assignment from the book so you can go ahead and get started on it before you have the book in hand. Okay. So the first thing then is to make sure that you have a copy of an integrated development environment. And again, as I mentioned in the previous video, and watch that if you haven't, you can use whatever one you want. There's no limit on what you can do. The ones the book suggests are NetBeans, and that's what they use for their examples. IntelliJ, which both of those are fine choices. IntelliJ, there's a free version, but it's kind of hard to get to sometimes. And then Eclipse is what I use. I found that for me, as I mentioned in the last video, the version of Java can become an issue since the book uses 8 and a little bit of 9, and the current version is 14. So what I did is what I've got here at the eclipse.org. I went there, I clicked on download, okay? And then from here, you can go to this link here, and mine's doing, I've got a Mac, so it looks different. But the Eclipse installer also has the JRE, which means it's going to run Java for you. Okay. So when you click on that, okay, it should take you to this download link here. And when you go, you can donate or not. You don't have to just slide it over, or actually go here to 0 if you don't want to donate. Okay. You then go to the donate there. I don't want to donate. There's a way to skip it. I forget what that was. And since I'm looking on the video, maybe we'll see it, maybe we won't. Anyway, what it's going to get you to at some point. I thought that, nope, that's not what it did. Yep, oh, there we go. Click here to start the download. I knew it was there somewhere, up here at the top. Okay. If you don't want to download, donate, you go there. Okay. And yeah, it gave me a version, it's odd, of which version to get of the JRE. I'm not sure what I did differently. Okay. It may be because I already have it. That makes a difference. But anyway, if you download Eclipse, you're going to be okay. I don't think that the version of the software is going to make a massive difference most of the time. Most of what we're doing in Java, especially early on, is going to be pretty generic, but just keep that in mind. I think, as I recall, Eclipse may ask you to create a free account. I don't remember. There's a video on it that I was expecting you to be able to see, but you don't have the book yet, so you can't get to that website. But if you have trouble with Eclipse, let me know, and we'll work through it. Okay. So again, looking through chapter one, beyond that, and we'll use Eclipse in the next video to do some examples. It talks about the Java Standard Edition, which is the main one that we typically use. There's also the Java Enterprise Edition and the Java Micro Edition, which is more for phones and things like that. Okay. Then there's just a bunch of stuff here about general computer science, which you've probably already seen somewhere. If not, it's worth looking at. It's good things to know. Section 1.4 is on machine language, which is what the processor actually uses. And then assembly language and high-level languages, which is what we program in. The introduction to object technology is worth thinking about, okay, worth looking at, okay? And it's this idea of modern programming. If you've programmed previously to this class, especially if it was a while ago, something like C++, for example, is not object-oriented by default. You can do objects in C++, but it's not required, okay? So let me go ahead and pop up my iPad here. So I can draw some stuff. Okay. And so the basic idea we're doing here, we're going to create our software as a real world object. Okay, so that object can have attributes. It can have things that it can do. Okay, so they use the example as an automobile or a car object. Okay, and for that car object, you can think about things such as what can the car do? Okay, so what the car can do, we'll call a method. Okay, so the car can accelerate, the car can stop, the car can turn. Those are examples of methods. Okay, so we're going to code, if we're coding this up in a program, then these are going to be the functions that we create that object can do. Okay, that's what it can do. Okay, we also have some things about it. Okay, there's some information that we can store. Okay, and these are going to be variables. It's going to be data that we're storing, and this could be, so what's another word? Maybe I'll see it in a minute. So we have the methods and we have the member data. That's, I guess, what it's called, the member data. So the member data is going to be things like the make of the car, the model of the car, maybe the weight, maybe the number of doors. Okay. If we're going to have it move through space, we may have a latitude and a longitude. Okay. And when you're thinking, why would you do this with all those objects? The car turns out to be a decent example. Say you're going to write a program that's going to test. You've got a series of roads, whatever your roads look like in whatever made up city you're doing. Say these are all roads that have traffic lights or whatever. And you want to model the behavior of cars. Okay. So we can pretty generically create this car class that we can then make a bunch of different cars. So we can have a C1, a C2, a C3, and so on. And we've already created the outline. So when we create a new car called C4, it's automatically going to have the ability to put in the make, the model, the location. It's already going to know how to stop and start and all that. Okay. And that gets to the bigger point of what we're doing with a class. So if you were going to make, for example, and I'm going to draw really poorly here. Oh, really poorly. Gingerbread men. Okay. You could, if you wanted, get out a knife and, cut along the dough every time you wanted to do it, right? But that's not what you would do. What you would do, you would buy a cookie cutter, right? The cookie cutter allows you to, bam, stamp the dough, okay? And once you've stamped it, it cuts it out for you, okay? So the idea here is that the cookie cutter, if I could type or write or whatever I'm doing, the cookie cutter is like the class. It defines the parameters of the cookie, okay? And then what you create is going to be the cookie, okay? So the cutter is not equal to the cookie, okay? I can't eat a cutter. I can't, do anything. I can't bake a cutter. At least I shouldn't, right? So a class then is not equal to what we're going to call an object, okay? So an object, the word we use is instantiation. Okay, so if we have a car, C1 is an instantiation of the car class. Okay, this is not the idea of a car, this is a real car. Okay, just like you're a student, okay, but you're an instantiation of student. Like the college has on you various information, your name, your address, email address, all that stuff. Okay, so that relates to not the students, but to you as an instance of a student. Okay, so again, going back to this example, one of the big things we're going to talk about is reuse, and that once we create this class, we don't have to code it every time. We can just create multiple instances of it, multiple objects. They're all going to behave in pretty reasonable ways. Okay, So the member data, there is another word I knew I'll get to eventually. It's called attributes. So we talk about member data, or we talk about attributes as things about the instance of the object. Okay. And there's some other terms that we'll get as we go along: encapsulation, information hiding. The encapsulation means that we can deal, again, C1 has a make and C2 has a make. Okay. We're going to bundle all this information up into a bundle. Okay. So this is the C1 bundle. It's going to have its own little box for make. C2 the same way. That's the encapsulation. Okay. We also have what the concept of information hiding. And information hiding means that if I don't make everything available to the public, okay, so there could be data in here that I need to track and I need for the internal calculations, but I'm not able to get to. Okay, so think of an employee record. The social security number is needed for the system. Okay, it has to be there for government stuff. Okay, but you don't want anyone to be able to get to that. So you've hidden it inside of the object. So it's visible in the object, not visible outside the object. We'll hit a lot more of that as we go along. This is just an overview. Okay, and then we're also going to get to the ability of inheritance. Okay, and inheritance means that once you have an object, okay, so let's say we have a vehicle class. That's already a thing. Okay, we can inherit that, or another word is to specialize that into, let's say, a car class. Okay, or maybe also into a truck class. Okay, so in this case, this we would call the super class, and this the sub class. Okay, and again, as far as an efficiency standpoint, when we create a copy like this, everything from with here is automatically in here, and we can just extend it or change it if we need to. So it just makes it quicker. You don't have to start all over from scratch. Okay, it also allows you to have the same name, the same type of things for all the data. Okay, again, we'll get more of that as we go along. Okay, one of the things that Java does, there are a couple of things. If you ask the question, why is Java a thing, and a bunch of other languages as far as that goes, and it's because of some deficiencies in C++, at least deficiencies in that, things that cause problems. Okay, the big one of those is direct memory access. Okay, so in C++, you can say what's in this memory location. You can change what's in that memory location through pointers, okay, which you don't care about for this class. Java doesn't allow that because a lot of programs get messed up because of pointers going wrong, okay? The other issue here is if you have multiple inheritance, okay? And the problem there is if you have an object, X, that inherits from both Y and Z, okay, which you can do in C++, okay? It means that if I would say X dot F for a function, okay, if F is not defined here, I would look to the parent. But if F is defined both here and here, then we can have some issue. Who's the more dominant parent, okay? So for that reason, Java doesn't do that. Java has interfaces. An interface is a way to inherit, but to be a inferior inheritor. Okay, so that's the idea. Okay, and that we'll get into more of that as we go on. That's probably all I need to say now. Okay, this all gets us, the very last thing it says here is the idea of the unified modeling language. Okay, which is used a lot. Okay, and we're going to start doing those diagrams in chapter 3 and 4, but just to give you a heads up, and you may see me do it sooner than that. It's basically, you're going to create a rectangle, has 3 sections. Okay, up here you're going to have the name. Up here you're going to have the attributes. Okay, and then down here you're going to have the methods. Okay, this is also the member data. And this could also be, the functions, the member functions. Okay. So there's a way, and we're going to specify how all this works, but we're going to be able to have a shorthand on what we need to do. We can draw a picture and give to a programmer, and they can create the class for us. Okay. So that's where we're headed. There's a bunch of stuff out there on object-oriented programming. If you're totally unfamiliar with that concept, then it's probably worth looking up YouTube or whatever. If not, let me know, and I can try to find something that's reasonable. Okay. And then the last sections of this just talk about Java in particular. Okay. And we'll talk a little bit about Java in the next video on how it tends to work and the files that we tend to create. Okay. But that's it. That's the basic idea. Okay. So there's a section once you get the book, I think it's the last section, 110, on test driving a Java application. And it's a painter application that we're actually going to develop. I think we get that far in the book, but you can go ahead and download a version of it. Okay. In fact, we're going to get to where you can get the code once you guys have the book. There's a place where there's a code repository for programs in the book, and they often say start with this and add to it. So we'll have to get to that. Okay. Then the last little bit here, and there's more, I'll keep finding more as I go on, is Internet and the World Wide Web, network programming. Java is big in network programming, so it just tells us about some stuff there. There's some stuff in section 112 on software engineering technologies, things such as agile development, refactoring, design patterns, things like that. Again, beyond the scope of this class, but if you go on to develop things, then as a developer, then you would need to know more about that. Okay. So that's it for chapter 1. Okay, if you have questions about that, go ahead and put them out there on the forum for chapter 1. There should be a forum for every chapter, even if we cover more than one in a week. So put a question there, and either other students or I can answer it. Okay. The early front runner for a time to meet is going to be Thursday at 5. Looks like it's the best time right now. If that really doesn't work, go to the forum that I have out there on the time to meet. And we can take a look at that and see what we need to do. Okay, so right now I'm going to create another video on chapter 2. We're going to do some actual programming. Okay, so make sure after you watch this one that you go ahead and watch that one as well.